So, meditative yoga, if you haven't taken this class with me, I've titled it The Yoga of Action. And if you stick with me through these 40 minutes or so, you might say, what? That didn't seem like much action, but there's going to be a lot going on at maybe more micro level than what you're used to. So I'm going to invite you to make sure you have a nice padding, but on a hard floor. If you're doing this on a bed, at least you're doing it, but you're not going to get as much the quality of resistance that I think is really good for this kind of yoga that is somatics or Feldenkrais inspired. That's a guy's name, Moshe Feldenkrais, Feldenkrais. So have a spot where you're warm enough. We do move very little and small movements, but very intentional. So you may even find you'll get chilly. Have an extra blanket to throw over yourself or a sweater so that you're comfortable. And we'll be on our backs. And initially, especially if that's uncomfortable on your lower back, please roll up a blanket or have a pillow or something under your knees so that you can really fully relax your body downward. Same thing under your head. A little bit of lift, a minimal lift, if you need, is also fine. Okay, let's put the phone on airplane mode. So join me lying down. Show you this way. Stretch your arms out to the sides. Let your legs be plenty apart. And don't fidget too much just yet. The whole time I'll be inviting you over and over to notice what you're noticing. Sounds simple, and this is what I like to refer to as our most powerful tool, practicing to use it well, attention. But in these next few moments also, I'd like to invite you to the question I usually pose to my students on Thursday mornings and on Wednesday evenings is, what brought you here? What brought you here? This is the first of the 3 steps of the yoga of action, sometimes called Kriya Yoga. Sometimes the first step is thought of as discipline. That word repels me kind of, to be truthful, but I like the definition of discipline is remembering what you want. That was a sign that was hanging, I believe, at the yoga Health Advantage Yoga Studio many years ago. It was really heartwarming for me to find that definition, remembering what you want. So it's a way to help us be clear about our intent. And by getting conscious about that, keep us true to our path. We'll notice when we're off track. It's kind of like when you're driving somewhere new and maybe it's the night and you're not seeing so well, and when you see a sign, the road signs, and it's a different road than you thought you were on, first you panic and then you're like, I got to find my way back to the road I want to be on. And thank goodness we have great electronic tools to help us these days. So for a moment, place one hand and then the other palm down on your heart as you envision as fully whatever it is what brought you here today. There are many levels of this. Your feet brought you to this spot in your house. The meals you've eaten have brought you here. Many, many relational things have brought us here. And then let your hands rest apart again, palm up to the side of your body if that's comfortable. And just take note now of the fact that you're on this ground, which I will call earth sometimes, on this solid ground. Quite a miracle right there. So we've taken this first step of the path of action. We've shown up. We've shown up for ourselves. Notice that your feet are touching the ground. And there's a quality when we actually give our full attention, the beam of our attention, without difficulty, just the beam of our attention to how the feet, the surfaces of the feet that touch the ground, how much becomes so much more in living color when we're really attending. I notice, I have socks. I can tell I have socks on. I can feel them. I can tell there's skin on my feet and bone. I can also feel somewhat of the texture of the carpet underneath my feet. Of course, I know it's there from memory, not looking at it now, but I also know it through direct touch. I know there's tile underneath the carpet. I can feel that hardness that's different than the texture of the carpet. Isn't that amazing? Like a few millimeters away, probably, or maybe a centimeter from my foot. And the breath helps us feel that slight bit of movement. I'm not sure because we're not ever completely 100% static, but I'm not sure what touch would feel like if we could be 100% still. Not sure we can do that experiment while we're alive. All right, so now notice there's probably a space behind your ankles. Notice the way the calves touch. Calves are touching. And to truly notice them this way, to fully give the flashlight of your attention to the calves is an amazing discipline, an amazing skill. Very likely the left and right are different. Then sense behind the knees. Behind the knees, if you don't have a blanket under them, there's probably some space. And there's a unique feel of the right back knee, the left back knee. And this feel of the back of the right and left knee is different than the feel of the calves, than the backs of the ankles. So right here, surreptitiously, we're learning to be more and more discerning. Another, as Kira might say, mad yoga skill. Notice your breathing. Then notice the backs of your thighs from the expanse from, it's a bigger area than any we visited yet, from the backs of the knees to the pelvis. It's different, closer to the knee and in the sort of what might be termed the belly of the hamstring muscles, the center, and closer up toward the sits bones. By the way, one of the main orientations of our practice, set yourself in the direction of enjoyment. destination, enjoyment. This took me a little while to get when Eric Schiffman said, if you want things to be interesting, be interested. I love these koans that our teachers give us for us to gnaw on. So now the pelvis. Now note the pelvis. And note that you're breathing. And by the way, I've sneakily brought us, well, they're all happening at once, the 3 steps of the yoga of action, but I've sneakily brought us to the second one is self-study or study of scriptural texts, they sometimes say. And all of these 3 steps, the showing up or discipline, the self-study, and the third one that we'll get to, there's no end to deepening each of these skills and these steps. And they can be applied to any endeavor, to our yoga practice, to learning to knit, to learning a new language, to gardening, to becoming a better human. So the pelvis, by now you might be noticing not only is each part different, but the relationship, the friendship you have with each part of yourself, it's different, isn't it? It's unique. And that thing about being oriented toward enjoyment, it's really cool. When you really start to sink into that, your practice and the possibilities in your life are going to take on a whole new glow. I haven't mastered it yet, not there all the time, but I know the breadcrumbs to follow to get there. All right, and at the lower back, we attend to this part of us a lot in yoga, that special curve of the lumbar spine, these 5 large bones sitting atop our sacrum. What does this actually feel like here this morning? And then the middle back, how does it touch the ground? The looking for, the orienting toward, what's the touch like? What's the way that gravity comes through? This, for me, I share this often. This, for me, was the most murky part, the most unclear as I began these deeper body scans. This part, right, was unclear. So if you can stay brave here, if you can stay with the uncertainty of what's here, if that's the case for you, maybe it'll be in another place in your body. That's a really rich place to be. More on that in a little while. All right, come upward to the back of the heart, right up in the center, upper, middle back. Maybe back lung area, just below the shoulder blades, but we're sensing this whole region now. We know the spine is there. We know there's rib cage inside. There's skin, of course, and musculature. And just what's the topography of the landscape of the back body here? By the way, some of my students report that they don't hear many of my words. They just go into their own zone. And if that's happening for you, that's really great. That's fine. Back heart. Then take your attention to one of your shoulders. You choose right or left. Where do you sense it in space relative to the ground? How do you sense the the connection to the upper arm and how does that touch the ground, the elbow, the length of the forearm, the wrist. My wrist is away from the ground. This little bridge, this special, special bridge of 11 little bones. Without this structure, life would be so different. Then the hand, somehow your hand is touching ground, or maybe it's on your body, and so then your body is the ground for the hand. And now swing your attention up toward your other shoulder, and this is another big learning point in my repertoire. Look how easy it was to take your attention from your hand to the opposite shoulder. This is great practice. Sometimes shifting attention is not so easy. We get hooked. So to know that we have the capacity to shift our attention that easily. Good skill, another mad yogi skill. And then how is this shoulder on the second side connected to the upper arm? How does the upper arm touch the ground? Does it touch closer to the elbow? Does the whole upper arm touch? And the elbow, the forearm, the actual touch. And closer to the wrist, depending, I could roll my hand so the side wrist is touching. It might touch, it might not touch. And then the hand on this side. How is the hand touching? Remember your breathing. And swing your attention back now to where we left off on the middle torso. Back heart. And come up through the neck. Shine that flashlight of attention into the neck. This bridge between shoulders, upper back, and head. And then land your attention into your head. By the way, as we're noticing a single part, like now the back of the head against the ground, you're noticing the back of the head against the ground. You just stay where you are. If you see me moving, you can stay where you are. Back of the head is against the ground. But at the same time, we have a aspect of our attention that is sliding toward awareness. Sliding toward like a fuller open aperture of the lens of our senses. So as a flashlight beam, if you're in a dark room, the beam highlights whatever's in its path and where it lands quite nicely. But also the things around become not as clear, maybe not as fully lit, but become more apparent. So we don't need to close off our attention to the whole of the room in the flashlight analogy. So while you're attending to the back of the head on the ground, you might be noticing things like, am I really at center? And how is the head and my attention to the head relative to the whole body, to the whole of my being and presence? So relationship is present. All right, let's rub the palms of our hands together. Get them nice and warm. And then place your palms over your eyes. As much as you can, let your shoulders and arms rest in this new position. Let your eyes, even with the eyelids closed, seem to look into the deepest darkness of your palms. Eyes closed, eyes relaxed. But looking into a distance. A little bit of weight of the heel of the hand on the cheekbones and the palm side knuckles on the brow ridge. And slowly let your hands slide away from your face. Relax the arms somewhere comfortable. It could be to the sides or on the body. And just begin to roll your head from side to side. I'm going to visit a few imaginary clocks. Imagine under the head, there's a clock on the ground, and we're rolling from the 9 on the right to the 3. You might argue with me which side is the 3 and the 9, but it's okay. We can agree to disagree. 3 and the 9, side to side. Easy movement, right? And my invitation for you here is, can this movement be lighter? Can it be easier in the way the head connects to the neck, to the heart, to the gut, even to the legs, to the shoulders? It may seem like a strange question. If you make the movement smaller from side to side, not quite the longer range of motion, it's quite the distance, do you notice that it may get lighter, easier? And so we're visiting the third step of the 3 steps of the yoga of action. Letting go. And we're doing it in a way that's circumventing our logical, analytical thinking. Nothing wrong with that, but we overdrive on that skill. Go into overdrive. So make the movement even smaller, so you're barely rolling your head side to side. Sense the letting go available. All senses on, easily, effortlessly. And then let the head come to rest. Let's take a movement that Andrea did with us last week sometime. She did it quickly. Let's do that. Can you see my feet? Kind of, what's this called, Chuck? Sloshing. I don't know if Chuck is here with us today. Sloshing. It's one of the favorite. Andrea had another name for it. I learned it as sloshing. You're basically kind of pointing and flexing your toes, and you're rocking on your heels. And it shakes. You can see a little bit that it's jiggling my whole body. If you do it really fast, it's real nice. And this is a direction. If there were little clocks under our heels, we'd be roughly going 12 to 6. Might be like you're going for me, it feels like I'm going from the 11 to the 7 on my right foot, and from the 4 to the 2 on my left. Go faster, faster, faster. Maybe point the toes toward the ceiling. See what happens. Maybe if they were that way, let them go outward a bit or inward. And faster, faster, and then slower. And see how all's connected. Feet, heels, shins, knees, hips, upper belly, thyroid in the throat. I always visit the same landmarks. I need to go to a few different landmarks to keep it interesting. All right, let it go. And having let go, step 3, surrender. After the movement, hardly any movement, barely. But I bet that there's something new happening in your body. Maybe just the way the body lays against the ground is different. Maybe the breath feels different. Maybe something about the quality of the vibration of your whole self feels different. Yeah, I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but it's true. You might just feel it. All right, let's bring our feet to standing, as Moshe Feldenkrais would say. Let's come in and out of that a few times. Lengthen the legs again. Bend the knees. Sometimes I do a whole half hour on just this. Do that a few times, bending the knees, then lengthening them. And watch what has to happen in the body. Watch the way the body has to shift, the way it leans against the earth. This is radical, really, to attend this way to the wholeness of ourself while we're doing something quite simple, quite mechanical, done it 1,000, 100 billion times. But what happens in the body? And if you keep your compass on enjoyment, and how do I make this lighter, easier? It actually teaches us to work more smartly in this field of gravity, to play, to move around more smartly in this field of gravity. Okay, keep the knees bent. Now let's visit the clock at the pelvis, at the lower belly. Very familiar action. Let's roll this part of us, which I call the golden ball now, between the 12 and the 6. 6 is toward the tail, and 12 is toward the waist. Are we having fun yet? Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. All right. 12 and the 6. Always, you can make the movement smaller. It's quite a range from the 12 to the 6. It's as if we're drawing a line on the ground by rolling the pelvis, which is not exactly a round ball. Certainly the back side is kind of knobby with our hip points and sacrum. Notice what happens at the head, at the heart. Those of you who've been doing this for a while, maybe even noticing the nadis, the little rivers that are the streams inside us that pull in the arms and hands, through the legs. This attention to the subtle takes practice. Do this with enjoyment. Don't forget that you're breathing, and the more we can let our breath have more and more freedom, the more it can do its job for us. And this is a part of the letting go. Let the breath be free and nourish us more fully. Okay, let that movement stop. And now, on this clock of the pelvis, containing the golden ball, let's roll the pelvis from the 9 over to the 9 on one side, pressing that back hip down, and then across over to the 3. This might tempt you to go into windshield wiper legs. Those of you familiar with what I'm showing now, where the legs go. That's wonderful, great action. That's a little more of the hip involvement. And what I'm asking you to do is keep the knees more pointed toward the ceiling and rolling just the hips, low back area. So the knees move, rather than side to side, they may move like more towards your head and towards your feet. The hips don't, one hip comes off the ground as you roll to one side, and then you roll back across center, the opposite hip lifts. Side to side. Enjoyment. Breathing. The yoga of action. And again, let's do this in a micro way. Let yourself land at center again. And just take as if inside the center of your belly is some warm honey. And you just want to spill that honey a little over to the right side toward the 9. And then bring it back just the tiniest bit. And then let it spill a little over to the left by lifting the right hip a little toward the 3. Back to center. Tiniest movement possible, so that if I could be watching you, that I'd hardly even see your movement. And as you take this really small movement, one of the benefits of it is that it can show us more clearly where the connections are. How this connects to the lower back, to the back heart, to the neck, through the shoulder blades and the muscles underneath them and between the shoulder blades and the rib cage. Down through the legs and into the ankles and feet, heel area, ball of the foot area. All right, let it go. Let everything down, the legs straight out, the arms relaxed. Take a few breaths. Take this super important skill of pausing. By the way, did I thank you for being here today? Oh my gosh, this is so sweet. Such a privilege for me to be here with you. Okay, let's visit yet another clock. I think we have time. This class was going to be over around 10:45 or 10:40. So let's roll the pelvis up into a little tiny bridge pose. And how I like to do this is imagine your tail, like you have a long monkey tail or a kangaroo tail, and it pulls long and slowly pulls the pelvis upward a little bit and then roll back down as if to roll your tail back down. Annie and I got to take a class with Angela Farmer a few years ago in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Talk about privilege. And I think she included this imagery in her teaching. So again, a smaller movement than usual. If you've popped up to your usual bridge, nothing wrong with that. But you miss a lot. The way I'm teaching is a lot about slowing down on Main Street, not zooming through it. Yeah, at even 25, 30 miles per hour, but slow down so you annoy the people behind you. You're new in this town. You want to see what's in the dime store window as you drive through. So go slow, go a little at a time. As we practice kind of reteaching ourselves the yoga of action. Okay, now when you lift your pelvis, let it be lifted a tiny bit. So I think I'm going to just feel, wow, I thought I was an inch off the ground. I think I'm only about a half inch off the ground. That's enough. Just enough so that we're leaning more onto the ball, the clock that's at our heart. So here, let's roll that ball so the heart rolls, so you're rolling more to be up on your shoulders, like coming up to that bridge pose a little more. And then roll back down so that you press down closer toward, it's not quite at the waist, but it's at the base of the heart, the 6 on this clock. And then roll back up so that you're pressing that center line of your spine, the back of the heart clock, up toward the neck. Chin will tuck toward the chest a little, and you're breathing. And notice what's happening in other parts of your body, what parts might be pushing down, assisting, what parts are lifting, what parts might be clenching. How the breath feels, what's happening through the arms, what's happening through the soles of the feet. and let it go. You can play more with that on your own. Just let it go for now. I'm going to lean my knees against each other in constructive rest. And pause. Let go through the shoulders. And now reach your arms. You can let the knees come apart again. Reach your arms up toward the ceiling. The palms can be facing each other. Yeah, that's good. Or facing towards your feet. Either way. And let's reach one arm up toward the ceiling and then release it back down. Reach it up. And in fact, you could kind of after you reach, you can let the arm drop, the shoulder drop. That's kind of nice. Sound effects. You can do it this way, or you can do it more gently and not drop the shoulder, going side to side. So here, I've put our hips back on the ground, but we're rolling that heart clock now between the 3 and the 9, roughly. And notice what happens in the neck and the head. And just for fun, let's let the head roll with the heart clock. So as your one arm lifts and your shoulder rolls to the opposite side, let the head look in that direction too. And then let your head go opposite. So as the arm lifts, let your head look over that shoulder that's lifting. Head looking opposite the roll of the heart clock. Head clock, heart clock. Talk about playing with time. Going opposite. And then let everything go together. So actually I'm feeling my belly clock, my golden ball belly clock rolling, my heart clock rolling, my head clock, and even the heel clocks. All are going in synchrony. Now let it go. Let it go. Let it all go. Let your legs down. Let your arms down. Relax the tongue. If you want to play with some of these things on your own, you could also do eye clocks. You can make up clocks in almost any joint of your body. Roll over onto your belly. Place your hands one on, or palms or forearms on top of each other, sort of like it's a crocodile position. And let your forehead somehow comfortably rest on the backs of your hands. Just get this position established comfortably. Forehead resting on the backs of your hands. I'm keeping my head up so you can hear me. I'm not talking into my blanket. And here, I'd like you to simply let your whole body rest, whole new orientation to gravity. If the low back's uncomfortable, take your legs a little wider. And by the way, I should have said this up front. I say it about 10 times during most of my classes. You're always free to do what you need to do to modify as you need to. My body just had this feeling of it would be nice to go into child's pose. Just listen to that as we practice. It's your practice. And if you're still in the downward facing crocodile pose, imagine letting your eyeballs hang. Imagine letting those two clocks of the eyes just hang here. For the remaining few minutes, I'm going to come up to sitting, but stay where you are in that downward facing Shavasana. Or you can roll back onto your back Or for the next few minutes, if you like, you can come up to sitting. We've been horizontal for a while. And we'll just finish out with Shavasana from whatever position you would like. The yoga of action. Showing up for what's important to us. Truly giving our attention to that. Second step. Truly giving our attention so that we learn, so that we are able to take in what's new. And third step, letting go of what we think we're so certain about. And we're being called to this, whether we like it or not these days. Letting go of who we think we are. But the letting go is not without this tried and true felt sense of trust in the solidness of the ground underneath us, in the freedom of the space around us, in the relationships that support us, that give us joy, that challenge us. That teach us, that help us to be more of who we're meant to be. So, dear yogis, this is the benefit of doing this from your home. I'm assuming that's where most of you are. If you like, you can just stay here for as long as you like, continuing your Shavasana until the next teacher of your day calls you. The next task of your day. So thank you for joining me today here for this practice. And may you be well. May you, as Anne Jablonski's video teaches us, shows us, may you not quarantine your compassion. Let that rip big. And go ahead and watch that video if you haven't. And come back and see us frequently. Peace.